Movement Young Adults, what is going on? I have with me a special guest, the one and only, come on, Pastor Matt.
What's going on?
Like, I feel, Pastor Matt, that you're a celebrity. Like, you're on, like, all on TV here at Trinity. Your voice, I feel like you could literally charge by the hour. And this dude right here, man, does so much for the kingdom that it blows me away. And so I think we're gonna have an incredible conversation, man. And I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks, man. Hey, I'm glad to be here. I've been seeing you record these every now and then, and I'm like, man, hope he doesn't ask me because I don't even know what I would say because I feel like I'm kind of out of my league here. But
absolutely not, bro.
Thanks for talking me up, though.
Oh, no doubt, my dude. This dude, I'm telling you, like, you're the baking soda to the vinegar here at this church, bro. Like, I can't express it. And so I cannot wait, family, to get in this conversation. We're actually going to talk to the individuals where you feel like you may be living in an obscure season. Maybe your gifting seem obscure. Maybe the season that you're in your life right now doesn't look like where you want to be in life or in ministry. But we want to encourage you how God literally will never waste anything. He'll never waste your moment. He'll never waste your season. And Pastor Matt has been on your whole life. It's been the journey, and so much has brought you even to his place today. And I know God's going to continue to do so much more. So this is going to be a very practical conversation. I'm excited to get into it. So Movement Young Adults, make sure you go ahead. Once again, grab that Cafe Bustelo, grab that ice cold Malta, and let's have a conversation. Family, I really do believe that all of us constantly need to have a conversation with ourselves. Yeah, sometimes you got to talk to yourself of how God will never waste anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He'll never waste a story. He'll never waste a job experience. He'll never waste anything at all. He really will use everything we go through to bring us to places, seasons, situations that we can prosper in. I feel like these last couple of conversations we'll be having in this podcast is continuing a conversation, understanding that God will bring us to our tomorrow while as we are faithful to our yesterday and our present responsibilities. And so, Pastor Matt, man, like, you do so much here at Trinity Church, so much, and like, he won't toot his own horn. I'll toot it for him. Toot. Listen, family. Through all this season that we are going through COVID and all these things that's happening and churches moving through to video streaming services, man, it's been super cool to sit down and watch Pastor Matt and the team, Pastor Jamie and everybody dream up how do we bring the gospel out the four walls of the church in a place of excellence. And so I've watched how it's amazing how God put a flashlight and put it on Pastor Matt. And it's been super cool to see. And it actually reminded me of David. It reminded me just seeing everything that's been happening in your life in this season. And you've done so much for the Lord in the past, and you can do so much. But this particular season, it blows me away of how it felt like the moment where Jesse went to, I think it was Jesse called all of his sons out to anoint the king, right? And the prophet says, no, there's another one. And David was out being faithful, watching his father's sheep, right? And he said, no, bring David out here. And so David didn't look ready, right? He didn't have his Sunday's best on. He probably smelled like outside, you know what I mean? He was watching his father's sheep. He didn't look ready, but he was prepared, right? His whole season of shepherding, his whole season of protecting his father's sheep, his whole season of faithfulness, he was prepared. His brothers may have been ready. They may got up early, got their hair cut, and all this other stuff, but they weren't prepared. Yeah. And so I just think, man, that there's, like I said, this is me just taking a step back and smiling at everything that's going on in this season, watching this David over here do what he do for the Lord. But there's maybe also other individuals where they're watching this Pastor Matt and they feel like they're in an obscure season. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So can you speak to maybe just how this season that you're in right now, how literally there's been so much in your life that you're training, in unintentional training or the school of hard knocks or whatever, that has brought you to this particular place where you are using your ministry to present the gospel in such a clear way?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess just to start out, man, I'll be honest. I did not, 10 years ago, I did not see myself in this position where I'm at now.
Wow.
When I first got called into ministry, I was 15, 16 years old. People prophesying you're going to be preaching to millions, or, you're going to be standing up in front of crowds of thousands. And, I've had a lot of amazing experiences in my life, but I never thought I was going to be a media director. I never thought I was going to be holding the camera, taking photos and videos, and sitting behind a graphic computer doing graphic design and all that stuff. So for me, this season looks a lot different than what I ever would have expected.
Wow.
And the truth is that can be disappointing for me sometimes.
Wow.
And it takes a lot of reminding myself, and it takes God reminding me of just where he's brought me from and what he's called me to realize that the season that I'm in, the position that I'm in, that it is important and it is what he's called me to. And the fact of the matter is, I think it's kind of just a culmination of all my life experience has brought me to this point now. And so that means that God has called me to this point. And I think of when I was first called into ministry, first called to preach, whatever that may mean.
Yeah.
And I think definitely in these modern times, like, called to preach can mean so many different things. I mean,
come on.
Look at where we're at now. We're having to reach people in so many different ways. And I think God has brought me to this point to show me that, hey, it's not exactly what maybe you thought it was. So this kind of season of obscurity, the season of like, hey, behind the scenes kind of background stuff, it was all for a purpose. And for me, I think for a long time, I've just thought like, hey, I had this certain thought in my head of what that looks like. I have to be on a stage, I have to have a microphone in my hand, and I have to be preaching. I have to have a 3-point sermon, and, I have to have people come to an altar and get saved. And that is what my version of ministry was. And now I kind of see that, this season of obscurity, the season of like just kind of feeling like maybe lonely and feeling like I wasn't really doing that version of ministry, that thought I was doing, that thought that of what I was called to do. Seeing where I am now, that season of loneliness kind of prepared me for this season. So I think it's just amazing.
Man, bro, I'm telling you, I feel like I'm standing right next to David. Like, it's just super amazing. So you said something, and I'm probably, hopefully I'm not butchering your words, like everything you went through brought you to this season. But it's also incredible to think about everything you're doing now is going to bring you to your next. Mm-hmm. Right? And so like the desiring, the same thing, think of Joseph. He had this dream when he was 17 years old, and he brought through all this season, didn't look anything like what he'd been through until he was in that place of Pharaoh, of responsibility in Egypt and all this other jazz. Genesis 50 verse 20 brought accumulation to that very truth that said you intended to harm me, but God allowed it for good to accomplish what is now being done. He's saving many lives. But like, just to think about how, yes, this you're knocking it out the park, and I'm telling you, man, you're knocking out the park and what you're doing now. But I'm amazed to even dream about how this season where you are behind the camera maybe and all this other jazz is gonna help you launch you in the next season. Mm-hmm. Like, especially so much of ministry being, like, especially now, bro, being on through a camera, right? And so, like, to have this base, have this knowledge, to understand video photography. He's a dope photographer, by the way. Maybe we can put his handle and stuff in the description, or right here on the screen, actually. And dope photographer, videographer, all this other jazz that is necessary to present the gospel. The Bible says, "How would they know unless we tell them?" Look, that's what it says in the book of Romans, right? I believe it's the book of Romans. But to me, people like yourself, you are modern day scribes, right? Scribes, they captured the moment to communicate, right? And that's to me, that's what photographers and videographers are. They're scribes. They're modern day scribes to me. They capture parables to present the gospel in clarity. Because I know plenty of the people many people that a picture sometimes will speak to them more than words.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so man, just that season you were mentioning about, that season of loneliness and like isolation in some ways, or being there's a part where I think there's a difference between God pushing us aside and God setting us aside.
Right.
And I feel like this season that many of us are go through in these moments, because I believe ministry can be very lonely. You know what I mean? Those seasons and you're in the cave could be like crazy. But God set you aside for such a time as this, right? Not to say that, I'm talking too much, y'all. I'm going to be quiet. Not to say that, and those who are watching too, maybe you're like, man, Pastor Matt, his transparency is speaking right to me. I feel like I'm right there. I'm in that season right now. Like, he really will, like, use these moments to bring us to where we need to be. So Pastor Matt, you traveled extensively, you know what I mean, with the ministry around the nation and around the world and things of nature. Like you pastoring and led ministries and things of that nature. Like, do you feel, or maybe there's someone watching here today and they say, well, I did this and this and this and this. What would you tell the person who feel like, well, none of that was a big deal, or that was a waste of time? What would you share with them?
I don't know, man. I don't think anything's a waste of time. You know, God, like we're talking about, God doesn't waste a moment. Talking about, oh my goodness, just thinking about all the things that I can think of. Man, Jesus with the fish and the loaves, you know, he collected everything and is like, you know, we're not going to waste this, the leftovers. You know, what you think may be leftovers, God values it. He values, you know, everything that you've walked through. I mean, I can't tell you all the things that I've done, man. It's like, just even looking at the past 10 years, it's like, man, why did I do some of these things? But, you know, like you said, it culminates and brought me to this moment here. And God is using you for that purpose that you're in. You know, you are, you're definitely in the place where God wants you, because, you know, if you are constantly thinking about the next thing, and, you know, I don't know if I'm rambling here or whatever, but, you know, one of the things that, you know, in my job, I'm always trying to think of like the next thing, trying to think of what's the next popular thing. You know, this whole kind of video situation that we're doing at the church now, you know, that's something that I've been thinking about for months, thinking about for years. And even in January, I was writing stuff down, like, you know, personal goals, things that I wanted to do. You know, I literally wrote down in January, what if the church didn't have four walls? Would we still be able to disciple people? Would we still be able to reach people?
Bruh.
And I had no idea what was going on. But, you know, where we are now, you know, if I wasn't thinking ahead, then I wouldn't have been prepared. But at the same time, you know, I have to realize, like, where I've come from has brought me to this moment, and I have to be faithful in my moment.
Man.
Because God's not going to waste that moment. You know, you may not have all the tools for the future. You know, you have these goals in mind and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know if this is answering your question exactly.
Perfect. But, you know, Pastor Matt, I think, like, I'm just talking about myself, just real talk. I feel that sometimes church has a culture.
Yeah.
Or around the nation, church has a culture. But I think if we're not careful, unintentionally, or possibly sometimes by decision, we can create this mold of how ministry looks and who ministers should be.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about an aspect of like living your life consecrated for the Lord and holiness, all this stuff. That should be the free space on bingo.
Right.
But like for myself, I am not at all an extrovert person.
Yeah, same here.
Not at all, bro. Like I have to literally, and some of y'all may listen to this think this is silly, but I literally have to coach myself to like, all right, get up. Okay, go say hello, or go talk to somebody, or go do that, right? And so, and then I have a speech impediment, some stuttering issues, slurring issues, dyslexia, and I'm like, God, they know in the world you've been calling me to do this thing, all right, to speak and communicate, and so like, and I felt like there's so much of church that in ministry that doesn't look like me, right? And so then thus many times I disqualified myself for even being in that pool of opportunity to be used, right? And so in the same way, like, but man, I just felt maybe there's some people watching this today where like, well, Timothy, I don't preach. Like, I don't sing this. I don't do this. I don't know God can use my giftings. I don't know if I can be in the ministry. But bro, like, there's so much whatever we put in God's hand for him to use, including ourselves, is ministry. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I want to encourage anyone who is feeling like that. Like, hey man, God can't use me. I'm not extroverted enough. Like, man, most of the high caliber leaders that I know that maybe I've sat down with, man, they are incredibly introverted, and listen, I mean, when you first get into ministry, like the first thing you want to do is get on stage, have the spotlight on you. But once you're there, you got that spotlight on you, all you want to do is hide. You just want to get away from it. And here's the thing, man, if you feel like you're introverted, maybe you feel like you're lonely, or you don't have those unique giftings that you see, people using their talents for singing and for preaching and worship and, all those different things. If maybe God's calling you to reach a lonely person, and how are you ever going to reach a lonely person if you've been popular your whole life? How are you ever going to, speak to somebody who's hurting if you've never went through any pain, or you've never went through any struggle? So I think there's a lot of things that we discount ourselves, and God's using it as like, hey, that weakness that you have, I'm going to use that for my glory. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that shortcoming that you have, that speech impediment. Man, I have a paper in my office. You say like I have a good voice, and I'd be good for podcasting and whatever, recording audio and stuff like that. Like, I never thought of myself like that. And sometimes it takes somebody else to tell you that and to prophesy that over you. But I have a paper in my desk office that's back in elementary school said that I had like a speech impediment. I couldn't pronounce certain things. And like, I mean, half the time I don't even think about that. It's just sitting in my desk for no reason. But like, it just brought me back to brought that thought back to my mind. Like, God can use you and bring glory to his name. If we had all the giftings, if we had it all together, if we had all the creativity, then you know what? We don't need God. And that's the thing, man. He wants to use us to show that, hey, I can use your shortcomings. I can use your flaws. I can use everything that you think is wrong about yourself. I've allowed you to be like that so that I can glorify myself through you.
It's okay to be uniquely unique.
Yeah.
I know that makes probably no sense, but it makes sense in my head, to be uniquely unique. It's okay not to be like anybody else, to be set apart. It's okay to be you. Like, to be an introvert is not a curse word. To be an extrovert is not a curse word, right? To be uniquely you, to understand that God can use you in that unique way is absolutely incredible. And so, like, there's many people I've heard, man, and I know you've heard it as well, that really sit in the pews in their church services, and they want to get involved. They want to give God their giftings, but they feel like God can't use what they have and who they are.
Right.
And I'm telling you, that is just so far from the truth, family. Like, God can use your artistic ability. God can use your painting. God can use your talking. God can use your poetry. God can use your cooking. God can use your hug. God can use how you can sit into a crowd and you can recognize a visitor, and you have no problem talking to strangers, and you go up, and that you never know that person was longing for some community, and boom, you just started it, right? God can literally use whatever we are, whoever we are, and whatever we can do for his glory. I think we just have to be brave enough to put it in his hands.
Yeah, you got to step out. I mean, like I said, I was not thinking that I would be in a creative position when I was called into ministry. When I went to ministry school, I had no idea that in a few years' time that I would be, making book covers and doing photography and doing some of these things for some high quality ministries. And here's the thing, man, like I told you this couple days ago, like I don't view myself as creative. I view myself as a problem solver. And
it's so good.
The thing is, man, like in middle school, I intentionally skipped out on art class. I was terrified of art. I was horrible at drawing. I still am. I have no creative ability in my body. So I think art was like the first class that I ever got a B in. I think I got a C in it once. Like I always had straight A's and stuff like that, except for art. So
a B? See, okay, bro, you go ahead with your bad self.
Well, hey,
come on.
but in middle school, that's why I play music right now. That's why I play guitar, is because in middle school, I was like, Mom, I cannot go to art class. I don't want to fail. I was so afraid of failing, so I'm like, hey, I got to play like music. I got to do something else that I can do. So I avoided anything artistic, and I mean, music, all you had to do was just read some sheet music, So I avoided all that, and today look at where I'm at, because God has used that weakness in me to be able to do that.
Oh my gosh, it's like you're driving through a highway and there's construction, right? And you don't know where to go. You just got to follow the signs.
Yeah.
Right. And he's moving and leading and guiding and things. And like now, like, bro, you sick at the guitar, you play covers and then you're on some albums and all this other jazz. And how crazy, again, us being, or you at the time being unaware of what God may be, again, not that he's the author of it, of how he can still orchestrate anything we do, and no matter how obscure or rather intentional it may be, like he'll literally use it for our good.
Yeah.
Like he really will never waste a season. Absolutely amazing to me. And I just feel like, man, that I hope that this conversation we have been having today has been liberating for you. Because like I said, I think the problem can be I once heard someone say, never judge your behind the scenes by someone else's highlight reel. Yeah. Like we see these people on TV, you see these your pastor or that minister who speaks so much life into you, and you're like, man, I want to do that one day or whatever. And then you may get frustrated and realize that you're not gifted in that regard. But listen, you're who you are, and you being uniquely unique as you are doesn't mean that God can't use you, that God will use you less, or that God can't use you with deep impact, because he wants to. He desperately wants to. And this is whether you're going in the ministry or whether you're going into like the quote unquote marketplace. Like he sees us, and we have value to him, and we should see the value in us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is such a good, bro, this has been such a good conversation, man. Is there any lasting remarks, bro, before we land this plane?
Man, I don't know. There's so much I could say that I don't know if it would even kind of add to this conversation, but I don't want to ramble or anything. But man, I just want to encourage anybody who's watching or listening, man, if you feel just like out of place, you feel like God's not using you, listen, you're there for a reason. This season is not permanent. But hey, like God has given you this season for a purpose. He's given you specific tools, and so He wants you to use them in this season. So, always be thinking about, hey, where has God called me to, and always be thinking of the future and the next season. But you can't be so focused on that you're forsaking your now. You're forsaking your current season, and that can be a struggle sometimes. Like, man, God, I'm called to something amazing, and now I'm just here. I'm alone. I'm in just a dark cave, basically, But you got to realize, like, hey, God has called you to do certain things in your now season. So be faithful in this season, and God is going to absolutely blow your mind.
Come on, somebody. You can drop the mic right there. Wow. Family, I believe this. I believe you said the same God who used everything on your yesterday to bring you to your today. It's the same God who will use everything in your today to bring you to your tomorrow. And He really will work out everything for our good. So I double dog dare you just to give God your yes into whatever aspect or avenue He's calling you into, whether that's in the ministry, whether it's in the life, or in general. You are uniquely unique, and that is okay. Young adults, do me a favor. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. We have a lot of incredible content coming. Can't wait to share everything with you all. We have service here on YouTube at 7 o'clock, premiered 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday, and you do not want to miss, family. It is going to be absolutely incredible. We have a service, a message I want you to hear. I know some of you may be watching this video later. Go back into the YouTube videos and watch his message out of our series called Little Foxes, and we're talking about gossip, and you do not want to miss that service, and we'll check that out. So anyways, God bless you all, and holler at you later. Pastor Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
His information is going to be in the description. Y'all, we're blessed here at Trinity Church, man, to have you. And so anyways, God bless you all. Holler at y'all later. Peace.